Imagine the year is 1958. The world is racing toward the stars, the space age has begun, and Brussels is hosting the Grand World's Fair, a monument to modern progress. But hidden behind the glittering lights and futuristic domes, there was a bamboo fence. And behind that fence, there were no animals. There were human beings. Thousands of spectators gathered daily, laughing and pointing as they tossed peanuts and bananas over these barricades to Congolese children, as if they were visiting a common zoo. This isn't ancient history. This happened in our grandparents' lifetime. It was the last human zoo of the West, a chilling spectacle where civilization met cold-blooded cruelty. History tried to burn these records, to hide the shame of a world that treated souls like trophies. Tonight, we step inside that cage. Tonight, we expose the dark truth the world wants to forget. Welcome to the World's Fair of Shame. Stay uncomfortable. The year was 1958. While the world was looking toward the future, Belgium was hiding a dark secret in its backyard. This was the era of the Expo 58, the first major World's Fair since the end of World War II. At the center of it stood the Atomium, a massive 335-foot steel monument representing scientific progress and the peaceful use of atomic energy. Millions of tourists arrived from across the globe to see the latest technology, television, computers, and space-age architecture. But as the neon lights of the Atomium flickered, a much darker attraction sat in its shadow. The Belgian government had constructed a Congolese village. To the public, it was marketed as a benevolent cultural exchange, showing how Belgium had brought civilization to Africa. But behind the propaganda lay a cold, hard truth. This was a human zoo. To populate this village, 598 Congolese men, women, and children were transported across the ocean. They weren't told they were going to be a spectacle. They were promised roles as cultural ambassadors. However, the moment they arrived, their dignity was stripped away. They were forced to live in thatched roof huts, built behind bamboo barricades, designed to separate the civilized white spectators from the primitive African subjects. As the crowds gathered, these families realized they weren't guests. They were prisoners of a dying empire's ego. The stage was set for an international disgrace that history would spend decades trying to forget. Stay uncomfortable. Inside the Congolese village, the 598 men, women, and children were forced to play a role in a script they didn't write. They were instructed to act primitive. This meant spending their days weaving baskets or carving wood under the burning sun and eventually the freezing Belgian rain. But the true horror wasn't the work. It was the audience. Every day, thousands of white tourists lined up along the bamboo barricades. They didn't just watch, they gawked. They mocked the traditional clothing the Congolese were forced to wear. Most infamously, spectators began tossing food over the fences. Peanuts, bananas, and coins were thrown at the children as if they were monkeys in a cage. There is a haunting, real photograph from this fair showing a white woman in a fur coat reaching over the fence to feed a little Congolese girl, treating a human soul like a circus attraction. While the tourists enjoyed the summer festivities, the Congolese participants began to suffer, The Belgian weather was damp and cold, a far cry from the tropical climate of their home. Without proper heating or medical care, many of them fell ill. The civilized hosts, who claimed to be protecting these people, did very little as sickness spread through the village. For the organizers, the show had to go on. Profits were high, and the image of the benevolent empire was more important than the lives of the people inside the cages. But as the first deaths occurred, the illusion began to crack. The World's Fair was no longer a celebration of progress. It was becoming a graveyard of dignity. Stay uncomfortable. As 1958 progressed, the Congolese village became a ticking time bomb. What was meant to be a display of Belgian superiority was rapidly turning into an international embarrassment. The Congolese participants, who had been lured with promises of being cultural ambassadors, had reached their limit. They were tired of being stared at, tired of the cold, and tired of being treated as subhuman. Small acts of rebellion began to flare up. Some participants refused to perform their primitive tasks, while others spoke back to the tourists who mocked them. The atmosphere behind the bamboo fence grew tense. The Belgian authorities, fearing a public relations disaster, tried to tighten their grip, but the truth was already leaking out. The world was no longer the same as it was in the 1800s. Journalists and students began to question the morality of the exhibit. International visitors, especially from newly independent nations, were horrified by what they saw in the heart of Europe. They didn't see civilization. They saw a barbaric relic of the past. Public opinion shifted from curiosity to disgust. Even the Belgian press, which had initially supported the fair, began to report on the miserable conditions and the deaths of the Congolese participants who couldn't survive the harsh climate. The modern mask was falling off. Under immense pressure and the threat of a full-scale revolt by the Congolese performers, the authorities were forced to act. In July 1958, much earlier than planned, the human portion of the exhibit was abruptly shut down. The bamboo fences were torn down, but the psychological scars on the survivors and the stain on history were permanent. Stay uncomfortable. The bamboo fences of the 1958 Congolese village were eventually torn down, and the world moved on. Belgium tried to bury the files, hoping the collective memory of this atrocity would fade into the shadows of history. But the reality is that the mindset which fueled that human zoo never truly died. It simply evolved. Today, the Congo is still a stage for exploitation. The spectacle has moved from the fairgrounds of Brussels to the toxic cobalt mines of Africa, where modern-day slavery fuels our smartphones and electric cars. The human zoo of 1958 wasn't just a bizarre historical event. It was a blueprint for the economic extraction we see today. To truly understand this, we must connect the dots. In my previous series, The Scramble for Africa, we explored how European powers carved up an entire continent for profit. In The Ghost of Namibia, we saw the horrific birth of the first concentration camps at Shark Island. This isn't just a collection of random tragedies. It is a single, continuous story of power and dehumanization. The 1958 World's Fair was the final desperate gasp of a dying empire trying to prove its superiority. By revisiting these uncomfortable truths, we begin to dismantle the colonial propaganda that still exists in our global society today. History is not meant to be a comfort. It is meant to be a wake-up call. If you believe these stories need to be told, join me in uncovering the truth. Like this video if you believe the world needs to remember these lessons. Share this part with someone who still thinks the colonial era was civilized. Most importantly, follow and subscribe to stay tuned for our next deep dive into the archives. Make sure to check out the Scramble for Africa and the Ghost of Namibia series on my channel. See how this dark puzzle fits together. Until next time, stay curious and above all, stay uncomfortable.